a WikiVidi Documentaries production. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Enjoy. The Dirty Dozen. The Dirty Dozen is a 1967 American war film directed by Robert Aldrich, released by MGM, and starring Lee Marvin. The picture was filmed in the United Kingdom and features an ensemble supporting cast including Ernest Borgnine, Charles Bronson, Jim Brown, John Cassavetes, Robert Ryan, Telly Savalas, Robert Webber, and Donald Sutherland. The film is based on E. M. Nathanson's novel of the same name that was inspired by a real-life group called the Filthy 13. In 2001, the American Film Institute placed the film at number 65 on their 100 Years, 100 Thrills list. Plot. In Britain, in March 1944, the Advanced Section Communications Zone of the U.S. Army is responsible for planning detail for the D-Day invasion. ADSEC Commander Major General Sam Warden has orders for Major John Reisman, an OSS officer, and Reisman's former commander Colonel Everett Dasher Breed of the 101st Airborne Division. The personalities of the three men are shown to clash, and the characters of the individualistic Reisman and the domineering Breed are established. Reisman is aided by his friend, the mild-mannered ADSEC Major Max Armbruster. Warden assigns Reisman an unusual and top-secret mission, code-named Project Amnesty. He is to train a small band of the Army's worst convicts and turn them into commandos to be sent on a virtual suicide mission, the airborne infiltration and assault on a chateau near Rennes in Brittany. The chateau will be hosting a meeting of dozens of high-ranking German officers, the elimination of whom will hamper the German military's ability to respond to D-Day by disrupting the chain of command. Those who survive the mission will be pardoned and returned to active duty at their former ranks. However, as Reisman repeatedly tells the men, few of them will be coming back from this one. After witnessing a hanging in a military prison, Reisman meets his 12 convicts, all either serving lengthy sentences or awaiting execution. Military Police Sergeant Boren reads out the sentences of each man as Major Reisman walks down the line of prisoners: Franco, Vladk, Jefferson, Binkley, Gilpin, Bozy, Vladislav, Sawyer, Lever, Bravos, Jimenez, and Maggott. Reisman visits Franco, Vladislav, Maggott, Posey, and Jefferson in their cells. Some details of their crimes are revealed and he uses a different approach with each in an effort to gain their cooperation. Under the leadership of Reisman, supported by Captain Kinder and supervised by Boran and a few more MPs, the group begins training. After being forced to construct their own living quarters, the 12 men are trained in close combat by Reisman and gradually learn how to operate as a group. For parachute training, they are sent to the base operated by Colonel Breed. Under strict orders to keep their mission secret, Reisman's men run afoul of Breed and his troops, especially after Pinkley under Reisman's orders poses as a general and inspects Breed's troops. Angered at the usurpation of his authority, Breed attempts to discover Reisman's mission by having two of his men attack Vladislav in the latrine, but they are both knocked out by Posey and Jefferson. The 12 men think Reisman sent the attackers until Breed and his men investigate the Dirty Dozen's camp and recognize the two men who jumped Vladislav in the latrine. Reisman, who had been away when Breed and his 101st Airborne Division paratroopers arrived, infiltrates his own post and opens fire on the paratroops as the convicts jump them. They disarm the paratroops. Colonel Breed is ordered to take his men and leave, and Major Reisman is called on the carpet by General Warden and his Chief of Staff, Brigadier General Denton. Denton, siding with Breed, insists that Reisman has exceeded his authority and urges General Warden to terminate Operation Amnesty. Reisman rises ferociously to the defense of his men, pointing out they had crammed 6 months of training into as many weeks and deserved a chance to prove themselves. Major Armbruster suggests a test that would show whether Reisman's men are ready during practice maneuvers in which Breed will be taking part. The Dirty Dozen will attempt to capture the colonel's headquarters. During the maneuvers, the men use various unorthodox tactics, including theft, impersonation, and rule-breaking, to infiltrate Breed's headquarters and hold his men and him at gunpoint. This proves to General Warden that Reisman's men can be used for the mission and that the operation is a go. Due to the men's nature, and to prepare to backfill in case of someone's death, Reisman makes them memorize by repeated recitation the details of the attack in a rhyming chant to help them remember their roles. The night of the raid, the men are flown to France, and continue to repeat and verbally recite the rhyme they have learned, which details their roles in the operation. A slight snag occurs when, upon landing in a tree, one of the dozen, Jimenez, breaks his neck and dies, but as trained, the others proceed with the mission. Gilpin taking on Jimenez's duties, Władysław and Reisman infiltrate the meeting disguised as German officers, while Jefferson and Maggott sneak onto the top floor of the building. The others set up in various locations around the chateau. The plan falls apart while Maggott sees one of the women who had accompanied the officers, abducts her at knife point, and orders her to scream. The German officers downstairs ignore her, thinking she is just having sex. Maggott stabs her and begins shooting wildly at enemy and ally alike, alerting the German officers. Jefferson kills Maggott because he has compromised the mission and evidently gone mad. As the officers and their companions retreat to an underground bomb shelter, a firefight ensues between the Dirty Dozen and the chateau's guard force. As planned, Władysław and Reisman lock the Germans in the bomb shelter, then pry open the ventilation ducts to the shelter, drop unprimed grenades down, then pour gasoline inside. Jefferson throws a live grenade down each shaft and sprints for the stolen half-track the team has liberated, but is shot down as the grenades explode. Over the course of the battle, all but 2 of the convicts are killed, leaving Reisman, Bohren, Władysław, and Franco as the remaining survivors of the assault team. As they make their escape, Franco, shouting triumphantly that he has survived, is shot by a stray round. Only Reisman, Bohren and Władysław manage to get out alive. Posey's fate is unknown, but it is assumed he was killed or captured, since he wasn't present during the escape. A voiceover from Armbruster confirms that General Worden exonerated the sole surviving member of the Dirty Dozen and communicated to the next of kin of the rest that they lost their lives in the line of duty. Writing. Although Robert Aldrich had failed to buy the rights to E.M. Nathanson's novel The Dirty Dozen while it was just an outline, Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer succeeded in May 1963. On publication, the novel became a bestseller in 1965. It was adapted to the screen by veteran scriptwriter and producer Nunnally Johnson and Lucas Heller. A repeated rhyme was written into the script, where the 12 actors verbally recite the details of the attack in a rhyming chant to help them remember their roles while approaching the mission target. Casting. The cast included many World War II U.S. veterans, including Lee Marvin, Robert Webber, and Robert Ryan, Telly Savalas and Charles Bronson, Ernest Borgnine, and Clint Walker. Marvin served as a private first class in the Marines in the Pacific War and provided technical assistance with uniforms and weapons to create realistic portrayals of combat, yet bitterly complained about the falsity of some scenes. He thought Reisman's wrestling the bayonet from the enraged Posey to be particularly phony. Aldrich replied that the plot was preposterous, and that by the time the audience had left the cinema, they would have been so overwhelmed by action, explosions and killing, that they would have forgotten the lapses. John Wayne was the original choice for Reisman, but he turned down the role because he objected to the adultery present in the original script, which featured the character having a relationship with an English woman whose husband was fighting on the continent. Jack Palance refused the Archer Maggott role when they would not rewrite the script to make his character lose his racism. Telly Savalas took the role instead. 6 of the dozen were experienced American stars, while the back 6 were actors resident in the UK, Englishman Colin Maitland, Canadians Donald Sutherland and Tom Busby, and Americans Stuart Cooper, Al Mancini, and Ben Carruthers. According to Commentary on the Dirty Dozen 2-disc special edition, when Trini Lopez left the film early, the death scene of Lopez's character, where he blew himself up with the radio tower, was given to Busby. Lopez's character dies off-camera during the parachute drop which begins the mission. The same commentary also states that the impersonation of the general scene was to have been done by Clint Walker, who thought the scene was demeaning to his character, who was a Native American. Aldrich picked out Sutherland for the bit. Jim Brown, the Cleveland Browns running back, announced his retirement from American football at age 29 during the making of the film. The owner of the Browns, Art Modell, demanded Brown choose between football and acting. With Brown's considerable accomplishments in the sport, he chose acting. Despite his retirement from football more than 50 years ago, Brown remains the league's 10th all-time leading rusher, the Cleveland Browns' all-time leading rusher, and the only player in league history to have a career average 100 yards per game. In some form of tribute, Art Modell himself said in Spike Lee's Jim Brown, All-American documentary, that he made a huge mistake in forcing Jim Brown to choose between football and Hollywood, and if he had it to do over again, he would never have made such a demand. Modell fined Jim Brown the equivalent of over $100 per day, a fine which Brown said that, today wouldn't even buy the donuts for a team. Filming. Interiors and set pieces took place at Emgem British Studios, Borehamwood. The chateau was built especially for the production, by art director William Hutchinson. It was 720 yards wide and 50 feet high, surrounded with 5,402 of heather, 400 ferns, 450 shrubs, 30 spruce trees and 6 sweeping willows. Construction of the faux chateau proved problematic. The script required its explosion. But it was so solid, 70 tons of explosives would have been required for the effect. Instead, a cork and plastic section was destroyed. Exteriors were shot throughout southeast England. The credit scenes at the American military prison alluded in the movie to be Shept and Mallet were shot in the ancillary courtyard of Ashridge House in Hertfordshire. The jump school scene was at the former entrance to RAF Hendon in London. The war game was filmed in and around the village of Aldbury. Bradenham Manor was the war games headquarters. Beechwood Park School in Markyate was also used as a location during the school's summer term, where the training camp and tower were built, and shot in the grounds and the village itself as parts of Devonshire. The main house was also used, appearing in the film as a military hospital. Box office. The Dirty Dozen was a massive commercial success. Produced on a budget of $5.4 million, it grossed $45.3 million, earning domestic rentals of $24.2 million in North America. It was the fifth highest-grossing film of 1967, and MGM's highest-grossing film of the year. It was a hit in France, with admissions of 4,672,628. To coincide with its release, Dell Comics published a comic The Dirty Dozen in October 1967. Brought to you by WikiVidi Documentaries. Would you like to know more?